Hello, and welcome to our Burp introduction for folks who are just getting started with Burp. The rationale for this is that many Burp videos go into great detail about Burp, and Burp is a fantastic tool. It offers a lot of features. However, that's so overwhelming for individuals who are simply wondering how I found my first bug. So I'm going to go over Burp tab by tab and talk about the practical usage and which tabs you should be utilizing the most as you get started. First and foremost, we have the dashboard. The dashboard now has these split panes like these. This portion we may reasonably disregard because it consists primarily of pro features. This is only the community edition, so we don't actually have access to it. Instead, we have tasks, which aren't that helpful unless you have the pro versions. We can disregard that. Finally, there is the event log. The event log is the most crucial of these windows since it notifies us when our proxy isn't working. Now, if it's been functioning, if it's not capturing data properly, if it's missing stuff, you can see here that I've got a lot of problems. If you feel that the interruption is interfering with your ability to test a website, you may log in here and begin troubleshooting. So that's helpful. That is the dashboard. Let's get to the point. So I spent a few minutes looking up Tesla.com. ND's simply looking around. And, as you can see, when you browse our website, the target fills up. We've got everything from Mozilla since I was testing on Firefox. So we need to conceal the less important items, which is where this tab scope comes in. So, in this case, we may say, define a scope. We can now use regexes to acquire the scope, but I usually like to enter it here. And then proceed to scope. And then say yes. So we've decided on Tesla.com as our domain name. So if I come back here, go in here, and click on this thing up here, we can go show only objects that are in scope. Don't be tempted to click the buttons now, since they're quite enticing. And if we click off, you'll notice that we've now reduced it to just Tesla.com. We may also go into the scope and choose Advanced Scope Control. And we can go in here and say, anything like contact.tesla.com, we want to add as many subdomains as we can. We go back into the sitemap, let's see login as error as well. And what this actually does is organize your requests by folder. These aren't necessarily folders because they may just be root. So they might just be informing the website that there is no way to arrange web pages. However, there is some content here that is categorized by URL and then by folder. So we may think of it as proxy traffic grouped by functionality, albeit that isn't always the case. So the basic purpose of this page is to go in here and say, okay, I've got a plethora of a challenge, okay, it's logging my password somehow. Was it transmitting or receiving? The wonderful thing about Burp is whenever we get a response or a request, we can send it to the other tools. We have send to intruder and send to repeater. These are the ones you'll be utilizing the most to discover your first bugs since they're the ones where you can truly find the intriguing stuffing. So let me go through those in a moment. But I'd like to start with simply going over the proxy stuff. The proxy is the next tab. The major purpose of the proxy is to disable intercept. Intercept effectively pauses your requests, the requests you make to the website, before they are transmitted. And this is before the website has had a chance to reply. So you can fiddle with it, interact with it, and modify some of its values. Now, for most types of basic testing, you generally shouldn't need to intercept anything until you get to the stage when you really must intercept it. So we may disregard that. And then just turn it off. The HTTP history is another really important feature here. In contrast to the sitemap, which is categorized by functionality, this is structured by time. So you can move up here to the filter that shows you objects in scope. And here's a sort of chronology of when we accomplish things. We can arrange by request number. If that's what you want, since then it's simply straight up, do anything, and check the history. You may also see both the request and the answer. I prefer the HTTP history over the sitemap because I believe the HTTP history arranged by time makes more sense for me when I test the features, since I want to be able to say, I pressed a button. Okay, what does it have to do with anything other than attempting to figure out where the button was clicked? So you always have choices. The only one worth noting in this section is down here for the SSL pass-through. If you're testing on mobile, you might not be able to connect to iCloud or Google Play because of their own security features, such as cert pinning. If you do find that you can't access a website and it's throwing all these errors, you can try adding Ssl Negotiation Failure here, which means that if Burp can't make the SSL connection, it will just send it as a regular request. As a result, it will not appear in Burp. However, it will make the request. Then there are the two main ones to look into: intruder and repeater. Begin with repeater and work your way up to intruder. As a result, repeater allows you to repeat a request. If we return to the target and enter one of our requests, this can be any request, such as the login request. And something is going on in here. So we may right-click and select Send to Repeater. And the request is here. So what we can do is try to follow some of these values, modify them, and delete them. So let's delete something and see what happens. Nothing. So that value accomplishes something we don't understand. Now, for something like this request page, which includes a ton of information. When we look at login forms where we're submitting something like a username or a password, or if we're doing anything or connecting with an API, where we have a sort of product, can we do things like, okay, what if I log into another account? Can I do anything with the second account, which is a request I made from the first account by just changing the cookies? So all you actually need to discover anything like idle is the repeater. You may do it all manually by going in here, finding the cookie, which is as, and physically editing the cookie here, or just removing it. What exactly does it do? Nothing noteworthy. But, yes, that is the fundamental function of this, to discover idles. It may also be used to locate interesting endpoints. When testing, you want to attempt to take in all of the data. We have so many requests in our thing here, which of them are truly relevant, such as what does create do? Is it doing anything interesting, like logging in? Probably not. That seems fascinating. And then there's something called anything, which may be fascinating or just exploited gated endpoints. So this is incredibly great for discovering those instances where you're able to access stuff you shouldn't be able to access because you're signed into the wrong account and utilizing a cookie from one account while making changes on the other. It is effective for detecting mistakes in business logic. If you can add a coupon code, are you sending the actual coupon, such as the amount that is discounted by, and using something like repeater? You can sit there and update these requests and sort of fuzz that. That is the first significant application of Burp. That's it for this video. Stay tuned for part 2, which will continue from intruder. It's Ssl Tech as usual. Remember to subscribe, like, and share for more content.